This is Radio Nepal. I'm Kaushal Ghimire with the news. The headlines first. Constitutional Council recommends Acting Chief Justice Hari Krishna Karki's name for the post of Chief Justice. Discussion on principles and priorities of upcoming budget begins in Federal Parliament. Board examination of Grade 12 begins today. And more than 55 people die and over 20,000 people displaced in ethnic violence in Manipur state of India. Now the news in detail. The Constitutional Council has unanimously decided to recommend Acting Chief Justice Hari Krishna Karki as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. A Constitutional Council meeting held at Singh Durbar yesterday evening made the decision to recommend Karki's name to the judiciary's top position. Karki will be appointed Chief Justice after the Parliamentary Hearing Committee endorses the Constitutional Council's recommendation. Deliberation on the principles and priorities of the appropriation bill for the next fiscal year presented by the government has begun in the Federal Parliament. Lawmakers in the House of Representatives yesterday put their views on the principles and priorities of the bill, put forward by Finance Minister Dr. Prakash Sharad Mahat in the first meeting of the monsoon session of the Federal Parliament yesterday. The lawmakers suggested the government bring a realistic budget, assessing the challenges of the country's economy. On the occasion, lawmakers and former finance ministers Gyanendra Bahadur Karki and Bishnu Prasad Paudel put their views on the existing situation of the country's economy. Lawmaker Karki suggested that the next budget should mainly focus on production and employment. Similarly, lawmaker Paudel suggested that the budget prioritizes the goals of taking the country on the path to economic prosperity while cutting through the possible challenges seen in the economy. Lawmaker Raghuji Panta viewed that the policy, program and budget on the government should focus on the import substitution by promoting agriculture and industrial sectors. Lawmaker Leknath Dahal said although all are familiar with the current economic crisis, no sufficient discussion had been held to resolve these issues. Likewise, lawmakers Dr. Swarnim Wagle commented that the government's efforts for economic improvements through the principles and priorities of the appropriation bill for the next fiscal year were not enough. Meanwhile, the National Assembly also held deliberation on the principles and priorities of the appropriation bill for the next fiscal year. Lawmakers from the ruling alliance applauded the principles and priorities, saying the government had prioritized inclusive and sustainable development. The lawmakers said it was a positive side that the principles and priorities stress renewable energy, irrigation, agriculture, industry, and tourism. Meanwhile, lawmakers from the opposing parties commented that the government forwarded ambitious programs rather than practical ones. The government has tightened provisions on foreign visits by the office bearers and employees at the local levels. The Ministry of Federal Affairs and General Administration, through a circular, urged the local level office holders and employees to not go on foreign visits on their own without getting approval from the bodies concerned. It has directed the officials and the staff of local bodies to go on foreign tours only on a need basis, saying the appropriateness of several programs of foreign visits before this could not be justified. The Kathmandu metropolitan city has started removing unmanaged cables from the electric poles in the streets of Kathmandu. The removal of cables followed an agreement between the Kathmandu metropolis, the Nepal Electricity Authority, and internet service providers. Superintendent of Police at the Kathmandu Metropolitan City Police, Manoj Lamichhane, said the cable removal started yesterday from Maitighar Mandala and New Road area. The board examination of Grade 12 is starting today across the country simultaneously. Today's exam started at 8 a.m. According to the National Examinations Board, a total of 468,389 students are sitting for the examination. More than 56,000 students are set to be appearing for the grade increment exam this year. Chinese ambassador to Nepal, Chen Song, paid a courtesy call on Vice President Ramsahai Prasad Yadav yesterday. According to the Secretariat of Vice President, during the meeting held at the Vice President's office in Loinchor, the Vice President and the Chinese ambassador discussed various issues concerning bilateral relations between Nepal and China. Likewise, Chinese Ambassador Chen paid a courtesy call on Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Home Affairs Naren Kaji Shrestha. In the meeting held at the Ministry of Home Affairs, the Deputy Prime Minister said Nepal was committed not to allow its territory to be used against China's affairs. He reiterated Nepal's commitment to One China policy. Deputy Prime Minister Shrestha also underlined the need of regularizing the meeting between district security bodies along the Nepal-China border and enhancing the community and coordination between the border security forces of the two countries. In response, the Chinese ambassador said he agreed with the proposals to intensify the communication system between the border security officials and regularize the meeting. The National Law Day is being observed today, marking the establishment of the Supreme Court in the country. The Supreme Court was set up on Baisak 26, 2009 Bikram Samvat with the introduction of Nepal Supreme Court Act 2008. The Supreme Court observes the Law Day with special significance every year. You're listening to Radio Nepal's 8 a.m. English News Bulletin. On to some international updates now. Ethnic violence in the Indian state of Manipur has killed more than 50 people, left hundreds hospitalized and displaced 23,000 according to hospital officials and the Indian Army. At least 55 people have been left dead and further 260 hospitalized since violence broke out between members of the Kuki and Meitei ethnic groups earlier this week, hospital officials in the city of Imphal said on Sunday. The Indian military, meanwhile, said that 23,000 civilians had fled the fighting, with displaced people being housed on military bases and garrisons in the state. Tens of thousands of Serbs have joined protest against gun violence in the capital Belgrade and another city after two mass shootings last week. According to the BBC, 17 people died in the shootings on Wednesday and Thursday, including 8 children in a primary school. Now, the general weather forecast for the country for today, according to the Meteorological Forecasting Division. The weather is likely to be partly to generally cloudy in the hilly areas of the country and partly cloudy to mainly fair in the rest of the country. Isolated brief rain or thunder showers is likely to occur at one or two places of hilly region of Kosi Province, Gandaki Province, Karnali Province and Sudar Paschim Province. Kathmandu's weather report now, maximum temperature of 30.5 degrees Celsius and minimum temperature of 14.5 degrees Celsius. Well, that's all the news we have for this bulletin, but before wrapping up, the headlines once again. Constitutional Council recommends Acting Chief Justice Hari Krishna Karki's name for the post of Chief Justice. Discussion on principles and priorities of upcoming budget begins in Federal Parliament. Board examination of Grade 12 begins today and more than 55 people die and over 20,000 people displaced in ethnic violence in Manipur state of India. Well, that's all the news we have for this bulletin. Our next bulletin in English will be at 2 in the afternoon. You can also listen to us online at our website www.onlineradionepal.gov.np. Keep listening to Radio Nepal and have a good day.